It's me, the Parent Whisperer. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
So today's goal, define the role, build authority, and separate therapy versus coaching. Segment 1, what parenting coaching really is. When parents hear coaching, they often confuse it with therapy. What's the real difference?
So I would describe the difference between coaching and parent therapy. Therapy is more clinical, more structured. Therapy demands interventions and practice. It's clinical, it's scientific. Coaching is more free-flowing, repetitive, more organic, starting and stopping, creating new habits, and just, it's like, coaching is like the implementation of therapy, and you're just teaching yourself or your kids how to do something over and over again until it creates a healthy habit or you stop doing an unwanted behavior. So coaching is more like behavioral, and therapy is like more like, let's look at your deficits or areas of opportunity and let's put it into a clinical treatment plan. And that's when you start to just get the knowing of it, is in therapy, and then you go home and you practice, and that's coaching.
What can parents expect when they first start coaching with you?
If parents were to reach out and ask me to help them with their kids, and let's say I'd be like parent coach, what would it be like with me? I'd probably get mad about something first, but in a very funny, loving way. I'd probably, I'm really organic and very authentic. So there's a level of authenticity that might feel a little scary or direct, but I also care so much that it usually comes across as tender. So you'd have to get to know my personality a little bit, which I hope you do through these amazing videos. And then after the first impression, what I would do is talk to you about what's going on and what you think or your perceived realities about what's happening in the relationship with you and your children. And then we would talk about what behaviors you could implement in order to have a safer, more secure environment. I would probably go over attachment theory and tell you about your attachment style. So kind of be focused on you to get the resources that you need to co-regulate with your child. It also depends on their age. So I would create more ways of looking at things, new perspectives. So I would start with the parent themselves first, and then arm you with what you need so you can find out what your child needs. Thereby, you can offer them a safe environment where they're going to want to come to you. They're going to want to come to you. They're going to trust you. They're going to trust you more than their friends. It's important that kids trust their parents more than they trust their friends. So a stronger bond between you and your children would be a preferred outcome. Peace in the home, peace within the family dynamic. We could really change something in a very short amount of time if we make a few adjustments. If you feel stuck, a lot of people feel stuck. Kids feel stuck, parents feel stuck. But if we get you a little unstuck and give you a few resources, that little bit can just shift your whole family system. It's not as scary or hard as we think it is.
Who is parenting coaching for? Struggling parents or all parents?
Parenting coaching is for all parents. It's not something that's a negative or bad connotation. As a clinician myself, I have to get clinical training every year, minimally 15 hours a year. So I'm even though I'm getting my doctorate degree and I'm a clinician, licensed clinician, I still have to do education units. So that's the same way with parents. The world is evolving, schools are changing, things don't stay the same. So you really need to evolve with the world and what your kid's environment looks like. So all parents need coaching. We all need coaching on everything. So especially parenting, because these kids are counting on us.
What's one misconception that keeps parents from reaching out sooner for help?
One misconception that prohibits like parents from reaching out oftentimes is the stigma around and the fear around the fact that they might be bad parents, or they want to hide something, or they feel shame. You know, shame is like the worst feeling that someone can have, and one of the most useless feelings someone can have. There's not a lot you could do with it. Maybe you can use it for motivation, but you can use a lot of things for motivation. It doesn't have to be shame. So shame is like what stops us from knowing ourselves better, from being honest with ourselves. And a lot of parents think that their kids are the problem, or they're scared to show any side of themselves that's a problem. Parents are scared to show themselves to their own children because of shame. They're so afraid that they're not authentic with their kids, and it's like, I'm trying to protect you, parent one says, but really you're not protecting anything. You're just being inauthentic, inorganic, and stopping the child from being who they are by not exploring that shame, or any feelings for that matter.
If you could describe parenting coaching in one sentence, what would it be?
Parent coaching is, simply put, empowerment for the family. That is why I do what I do.
All right, Yasmin. Segment 2.
Yes.
Girls turn 12.
Oh my God.
The goal is to explore father-daughter emotional distance, puberty, and family connection. This is a huge topic, especially in a lot of Hispanic cultures. We shy away from it. The fact that we're able to crack this barrier down today is legendary. So question number 1. Why do so many girls start to pull away from their dads around age 12?
So you're asking me, why do so many girls pull away from their dad at age 12? And my question is, why do so many dads pull away from their girls when they're age 12? Because that's really what's happening. So girls at age 12 start to, well, all kids, you know, but we're focusing on the chicks right now. They go through something called, you know, synaptic pruning, which I've talked about before, and I'll never stop talking about it because I think not enough parents know about this. So synaptic pruning is when, you know, usually starts around there. It actually happens throughout the whole life, but especially at 12, because we're moving away from the daddy's girl life or a childhood and transitioning into maturation, developing more of a personality, figuring out like a sense of self and identity. And so that's just the brain. And then there are the hormonal elements. Teenagers tend to sleep and eat a lot more for good reason, not just because they're lazy or they're little piglets or something like that. They need that sleep. They need that amount of food. And it's because of the synaptic pruning and the hormonal changes and the growth and the body changes. So why do so many dads veer away from their daughters around this time? So, and this happens in a lot of cultures, but like I've seen it at every culture. Maybe I could interview someone, a few men, because I want to know what they're thinking. But basically, as girls grow, they are no longer the daddy's girl, right? Which they still should be, actually. Dads start to no longer see their children, their girls, as their little girl anymore. She's becoming a grown woman, right? So she's maturing and changing. But the relationship still should not change. The idea that dad is my hero, should always be there, that safety should always be there. Dads tend to veer away, and even if the child veers away first or more intensely, like he's got to reposition her and say, you will always be my daughter. I will always be close to you. You are always daddy's girl, you know, because that's a time where kids are starting to feel things like anxiety. They're starting to, middle school sucks, you know, it's like one of the most intense phases of any child's life. So friends and sociability, like the kids go from their parents being their best friend to suddenly the world has to be their best friends. Their classmates, they have to be accepted. And it's a stressful transition. And so girls start to wonder where they stand. Why isn't my dad making me, like, why isn't my dad affectionate anymore? And dad may be like, oh, I shouldn't be affectionate anymore because she's growing up. I shouldn't treat her like she's a baby anymore. Whatever the maladaptive thought process is that all these dads are thinking. But, you know, it's just like this terrible cutoff at the age of 12 when the daughter is most vulnerable. It just makes me so mad.
Following up on that, what's one thing dads can do to keep connection alive when they start to feel that distance?
One thing that dads can do to help their daughters during this transition is simply keep doing what you're doing. Have conversations with her. Show her that you're open to her vulnerabilities. Don't just stop communication. Keep going. Keep talking. Don't change it. Make her feel like she's your baby forever. That'll always be a good thing. Your daughter needs to feel safe. Why does she have to get cut off from safety at 12 years old? Which, by the way, is the number one issue in 12-year-old girls right now is cutting. They are cutting because they can't cope. They are self-harming because they can't cope. And if you are there for them, they might not do that.
What are some phrases or actions that accidentally make things worse?
Some things that dad does or says that makes things worse is cutting themselves off verbally and physically. Stop affection, stop communication. Sometimes dads say things like, why are you dressed that way? Or being critical about the way that they look or what they're wearing, instead of, what do you like about that outfit? Something totally different, right? Or dad oftentimes becomes dismissive and avoidant, and we don't want that at all. Like, you can't be avoidant of your 12-year-old daughter or any of your children ever. Like, avoidance is putting gas on the fire. They feel abandoned. 12-year-olds will feel abandoned. Children will feel abandoned. So stop abandoning your 12-year-old daughters. And then they come to me and I have all this undoing to do. You come straight to me and I'll tell you what to do.
How can moms support dad's shift instead of taking sides?
Ooh, how can mom help while dad and daughter are going through this shift instead of maybe making it worse or being neutral? So that's where we get into family systems. Like, how is this family system functioning? With moms, obviously the relationship between mom and dad has to be peaceful and mostly agreeable. They have to have similar values. Hopefully it's already a healthy relationship. So if it's a healthy relationship, moms need to reinforce what dads need. I'm sure dads depart from their 12-year-old child, 12-year-old daughter, and mom notices it but doesn't say anything, or is also avoidant, scared to talk about it, or nervous, or just used to it and accepts it automatically. She can intercede the child's behalf and just be like, hey, have a conversation with her husband and talk about a plan. It's a 5-minute conversation and very valuable 5 minutes. So it could be a teaching moment. It could be from wife to husband. It could be a moment of, hey, just be affectionate with her. And dad's like, oh, thank God, I really didn't know what to do. Or thank you for giving me like mental and emotional support so that permission. Maybe mom gives dad permission, and he's like, okay, I understand. I could still be affectionate with my daughter. So intercessory is what the mom can really do.
Now, for a father who is looking for advice, is looking to move forward, what do you say to that dad who feels heartbroken that his little girl doesn't need him anymore?
To the dad who's heartbroken because his little girl doesn't need him anymore, you're wrong. Your daughter needs you now more than ever, because she's very confused. She's feeling feelings she's never felt before. They're intense, they're scary, And all she's looking for is safety. So be her safe haven. There's no such thing as losing your daughter unless you believe that you've lost her. So what narrative are you going to create in your own head and then ultimately manifest? You want to realize that you'll always have your baby girl and you'll never lose her.
If you had one sentence to help fathers navigate this age, what would it be?
If there was one thing that I can tell dads, it would be it's redirection and not rejection.
All right, Yasmin, segment 3, healthy boundary testing. Why is it actually healthy for kids to test boundaries?
Oh my gosh. It's so healthy for kids to test boundaries, especially in a contained environment like at home. I mean, that's a dream. Like, your kid yells at you. I love it. Your kid's just yelling at you and maybe even said a bad word, right? I love it. I love it. Because they're learning and testing boundaries in a contained environment, in a safe environment. And so that behavior is a form of communication. So instead of the way that they're presenting and talking and expressing themselves is not the issue. Like, lower your voice. That's not the issue. Don't yell at your mom. That's not the issue. Don't say bad words. That's not the issue. What is the real issue? The real issue may be, like, what is your child trying to tell you through frustration and aggression? So, a child comes up to me and says, I hate you. I don't ever want to come back here and see you again. You're a loser and I don't like your house, so I'm not coming here anymore. I wouldn't say, hey, be respectful. You're disrespectful. Then that's gonna be like, oh, they're gonna believe you. Oh, I'm disrespectful. I didn't know that, but now I know that. And now now that I'm disrespectful, I'm gonna continue to be disrespectful. That is not wanted. What I would do in real time, they say in vivo. In vivo, you want to sit them down and talk to them, embody what you want them to be. Instead of yelling back or getting frustrated or being accusatory, I would sit them down and I'd be like, I'm noticing that you're really frustrated right now. I don't usually see you this way. What happened? Are you okay? Because I don't like to see you this way. Can you tell me what's happening that made you feel like this? And they're going to be like, a lot of kids are going to be like, I don't know. A lot of kids are going to be like, I don't know. Especially at 12, 13, early teenage years, they're going to just not know why they even act a certain way. So I'm going to teach them why they are that way. So after asking a bunch of questions, like, what do you think it is? What's happening? I'm going to embody the behavior that I want them to receive. I'm not going to judge their character, but instead see what's this issue. And so they'd say, I don't really know. And I'd be like, that's okay. You don't know. I love that answer. I love, I don't know, instead of making it up. I love, I don't know, instead of you make me mad. I don't know is authentic and real because they don't know. So if it was a 12-year-old or early teens, then I'd be like, well, how's school? How's home life? Ask open-ended questions. What was your day like? So simple. Your questions are showing that you're trying to communicate with them and be there for them. Yelling at them for being disrespectful or raising their voice or getting angry, now you're shaming them for a feeling they have a right to. They have a right to feel angry. They have a right to not know what's going on. You do it every day. You do it all the time. So just because they're little, they're just like us. We do that. We do that to each other all the time. So why are we so harsh to children and not harsh on ourselves or our peers? So asking them questions and telling them it's okay that you don't know. This is probably because of synaptic pruning. This is probably because of hormonal changes. These are new feelings that we'll figure out together. So you could say, I don't know, but I know that I don't like seeing you this way, and I know that I love you and I don't want you to feel this way, is a better answer than anything else. Like, you're growing, things are changing, I'm not exactly sure, but I want you to feel safe anyway. That's the kind of environment you want. You're not there to necessarily, you'll solve it by being loving, not giving necessarily the right answer.
What is the difference between normal boundary testing and disrespect?
So the difference between normal boundary testing and disrespect. Normal boundary testing would be like challenging your parents, challenging your peers, your teachers, to see how much you could get away with. That's why I don't like spoiling either, because if you give your kid too much, then they're not going to be ready for the real world. They're going to think everyone's going to give them everything. So they won't be ready for rejection, right? So there's testing your boundaries outside the home, in the home. And then that, thinking of that against disrespect, disrespect is probably has been building for a while, and it's not a issue every so often. Disrespect is consistent cursing, consistent rejecting parental authority, rejecting school authority, teacher authority, at a pretty consistent rate, because this child is in deep, deep pain. So it's tough, because disrespect is actually a form of communication. That child is telling you, I'm upset and I'm hurting and nobody is helping me. So disrespect is probably the most vulnerable and pained child. This child is in severe pain if they're consistently disrespecting. So, kids will be disrespectful, but it's not like adult disrespect where they have full knowledge of what's happening. They don't even have full understanding of their own behavior. So they'll be disrespectful, but you won't be disrespectful back. You'll be vulnerable back. You'll be curious. Don't you want to know why your child is being disrespectful? Instead of saying you're being disrespectful, sit your kid down, calmly ask, why are you being disrespectful? That hurts my feelings. I'm hurt by your being disrespectful. Show your vulnerability, because I guarantee you it's a form of love, and your child will start to open up. Even if it's you got to do it 10 times. Just keep doing it. And that disrespect is just pain. It'll dissipate.
What's one boundary you wish more parents held firm, and why?
So one boundary parents could maintain that I would say is essential is keeping your voice low. Never, ever raising your voice. That's it. You lost them after that.
And how can parents stay calm when the kids push those limits?
Parents can stay calm, especially when their kids push them past limits, by something called radical acceptance, and staying motivated by knowing that if you yell back or you raise your voice, then the work is going to be twice as hard. So if you stay calm and you're able to, like Sophie says, co-regulate with your child, then it's not going to be as hard for you to help regulate them in the long run and in the short run.
What is a when/then statement that works really well for this stage?
So boundaries are not walls, they're guardrails for connection. That's a good thing to remember on your day-to-day.
All right, Yasmin, segment 4. I think we're gonna go viral after this one.
Okay.
Talking
That was the
about
point.
bodies, sex, and arousal. The goal here is, when should parents start talking about their child's body and changes?
Okay. This is a subject matter that is very sensitive and very shame-inducing, because this generation, the generation before us, didn't really talk about it. It's a huge stigma. So I'm going to talk about how to talk to your kids about their body, their maturing bodies, and their sexuality, and what arousal means and how it works in the body. So first and foremost, these days, kids are maturing a little bit earlier. Again, around 11, 12, 13, they begin to, or sometimes even before that, their body starts to change, and girls get their period. There's a reason for that. They might not even know it. So we have to tell them what's happening and what to expect. So talking about a girl's body and a boy's body and how it's gonna change is something you want to start talking about when they're young, but it should be age appropriate. And young, I mean, maybe at the age of reason, 5, 6, 7, 8, depending on the child. So you might say things like, oh, you came from mommy's belly, and very easy and simple. Whenever your child starts to appear like or present as if they're confused and they need answers about how mom had a baby, or why their body's changing. Why does mom need a bra, and why is dad's body different than mom's body, or whatever they're seeing, they really want to know, and they have a right to know. So we want to be, again, age appropriate, say things appropriate for their age. As they're getting older, you want to tell them about how their body's going to change, and what does it mean if I get my period at 12 years old. What is it for? It's to be able to be fertile and have children, and before it happens to them, especially not during, and not after, and not never. It's like preventative mental care. You have to help them understand who they are. It's a big part of their identity. So before their body starts to change, when you get a certain age, this is what's going to happen to you. And you might be confused about sexual arousal, again, new feelings, physical changes. Tell them about how a boy's body changes before a boy's body changes. And so you got to talk to them about what an erection is and what it's for. And, if their body is telling you something, then you need to talk about it with them so they understand it. Like, I've had kids come to me and not know what's going on with their bodies and having serious panic attacks, or hating their period, or freaking out thinking there's something wrong with an erection. People grow up physically much faster than they do mentally these days. So they might, and that's our fault as parents, and our parents too, because they avoided the subject. And so people are not finding out about why things happen to their body until later in life, or through their friends. I mean, how many of us found out what sex is through our friends or through movies? I don't understand it. I don't understand how a parent doesn't teach their child, 12, 13, 14, why it's important to know what sex is and what it's for. Our society is rampant with bad behavior around, sexual identity, sexual deviance. Little girls are getting kidnapped. Women are getting killed. There's just so much deviance in today's society, worse than ever. And that's because of lack of understanding and education and abuse and other things. But, not telling your child is a form of sinning by omission. So you have to tell them why their body is changing, why their boobs are getting bigger, why they're getting erections, why they're getting aroused, sexually aroused. This is nothing I've ever experienced. Why is this happening to me? You have to explain how to protect yourself while you're sexually aroused, how to understand your body so that you don't go to someone who's authority and you're vulnerable to them. They should go to their parents, not a teacher or someone who could exploit them or take advantage of them and hurt them. I mean, that is your job as a parent, to tell your children about every change that they should expect in their body. Even just regular growth, like you're gonna probably, get hips, you're gonna probably get a bigger butt or bigger boobs, and that's necessary for life, for generations to come, to feed your baby milk. It's not just sexualized. We sexualize it so much. But body changes are sacred and holy things that are for something and not just for sex. Like, as a girl gets older, she gets hips. Like, every single person in this world goes through this, and we don't talk about it, and there is no excuse. So with the language you want to use, be as authentic and open. Explain what arousal is. Explain body changes. Explain an erection. Explain a girl's period, her boobs getting bigger or never getting bigger with some of us. Sorry, bad joke. So what are we going to do to help the next generation understand themselves better without being stigmatized and shameful? Is talking about it clearly and blatantly, and that's okay. Like, get used to it. You know, that parenthood is dirty. Parenthood can be gross. Being alive, being a human is gross. You got to be gross.
What do you say when a child asks a question that completely catches the parent off guard?
If your child asks you a question and you get totally caught off guard, so you're on your way to school, Mike says, I'm getting this weird feeling. I really like Stacy, and something is happening in my heart and interiorly. That's not what he's gonna say, but you know, he talks about how he likes her and how maybe he gets like an erection or is kind of like going in that way and maturing and stuff like that. So asking questions, even if you're like totally caught off guard, the simplest thing is, can you tell me more about that? Especially, well, you have to ask identifying questions. You don't really know enough about it. So simple answer to answer your question is simply to ask a question and buy time. You can buy time. Like, what do you mean by that? Let them talk. As the more the child talks, the better. And creating that environment and then reciprocating and saying, you know what that's for is to give life, and when to become one, and when you're married, or you start to teach them about marriage, you start to teach them about the expectation for why he's feeling attracted or like getting aroused by Stacy. It's a perfect opportunity for Mike to have a life lesson around why men have erections or why men get aroused. This is a sacred conversation that needs to be had.
All right, Yasmin, segment 5. This is very huge because I don't think they don't talk about this either, but that's what we do here. We talk about things people hate talking about.
Let's talk.
Why do children or teens turn to cutting or self-harm?
So children and teens turn to cutting and self-harm because they don't understand their own emotions. And if you don't understand your emotions, you cannot self-soothe. If you're having anxiety and you're panicking as a 12-year-old, 15, 18, if you're panicking, you can't redirect your attention if you don't know what you're feeling and knowing, okay, so I'm going through this feeling of anxiety. I know it'll be over soon, and it's not how I'm gonna be for more than a minute or two, and then I'll have to figure out, is it because of this? Like, what's the source of it? How can I cope? Can't cope if you don't know what it is that you're feeling. So deep breathing, relaxation techniques. Kids don't know they could do that to cope or relieve stressors, especially with new feelings. Serotonin levels are dropping. So if they're going through that, then they're gonna want a release of some type. So kids cut to release the anxiety, the depressive symptoms, the fear that they're feeling. So like, they can't self-soothe. So instead they'll cut themselves and it'll feel like a release. And that release is so helpful to their general well-being. They could go to volleyball now. They could be happy and hang out with their friends until those feelings happen again. And then they're like, oh no, it's coming back and I don't know what to do with this and I don't know how to cope. Or they're overworked is a big one. They have too many sports, too many responsibilities. They're trying to perform and they're stressed out and they don't have any other coping mechanisms because there's not enough time in the day to do anything else, which is a big issue in today's society. So, which is like overexertion and parents not teaching their kids how to cope. And so as a result, they'll cut themselves for quick releases.
What are some early signs that parents often miss?
One of the earliest and most detrimental and to me obvious signs that a child is in need of something, or it's a warning sign or something risky is happening, is isolation. If your child is isolating in their room for long periods of time, they're there because that's where they feel safe. You have to ask yourself as a parent, why doesn't my kid want to be in the living room with me, or watching me cook, or cooking with me, or watching a show with me? And they're like isolating a lot, then they're stressed out. They're depressed, they're confused, and you're thinking in your head most likely, oh, they're just being teenagers, or oh yeah, just, that's just the way kids are these days. And you excuse yourself from your own behavior for not interacting, and you're using their teenagers, they're growing up, as a scapegoat for not dealing with what's happening. So you got to engage your kid more. You have to be more curious. You have to create a safe container where they can come and ask you questions about, why do I feel sad? Why do I feel depressed? Why do I feel anxious? I've never felt this before. I don't understand. I'm the perfect child. You have no idea how many kids come in and they're like straight A students. They are already prepping for school by going to classes early in high school for college. They take sports, play an instrument, and they're literally the perfect kid, and their parents keep asking for more. And that's going to make them isolate. That's one of the biggest issues I see these days.
What is the worst thing a parent can do in the moment when they find out their child is cutting?
The worst thing a parent can do in the moment when they find out that their child is cutting is blaming and shaming. Is the worst thing you can do if you found out your child's cutting. Blaming yourself is not a good idea. Blaming the child is not a good idea. Blaming the child's friends is not a good idea. Where did you learn this from? There are a lot of kids who learn about cutting who don't cut. It's not that they learned it. It's that they want to do it. It's that they need to do it. It's that it's a behavior that's a type of communication. So they're trying to communicate something to you, don't really know how, and you're shaming them and abandoning them and embarrassing them for something they already are ashamed of. That's just the worst thing that you can do in any way, cutting and others.
How can a parent rebuild trust after they mess up on something like this?
It is so easy to rebuild trust with a child, even after you find out that they're cutting or they're doing some really dangerous self-harming or really any type of behavior. Kids are so ready to forgive their parents because they're so desperate for a safe environment, a comfortable, secure environment. They will turn around so quickly. They're very intuitive. They know what's good for them. It's a dream for a child to hear that their parents want to reconcile something. Very easy turnaround.
What hope can you give parents watching this who feel terrified and lost?
I hope that parents have hope that even if you feel lost right now or scared, parenting and getting your child in a place where they feel secure and safe is actually pretty easy to reverse. There are resources out there. I kind of hate that word, resources, but there's a lot of help. Don't be afraid, because there is so much that you could do to shift one thing and have your child return to you mentally and emotionally. So don't be afraid, because fear is going to stop you from moving forward. Really trust your gut and watch my wonderful podcast and my YouTube videos. And you can even hit the subscribe button and the like button and leave a comment. And that's how you'll have the parent whisperer around all the time to help you. This is your girl Yas, the parent whisperer, signing off.